Good evening, hello and welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Anusha Soni. There's a crackdown on illegal madrasas across the country. Border states like Assam have stated that there are certain institutions which are indulging in radicalization and terror activities. You also have the state of Uttar Pradesh, which has started a physical survey. Assam, you'd remember, had also passed a law which was upheld by the Guwahati High Court, under which the madrasa education has been completely regularized. Now, the public discourse fails to register these nuances. It stumbles between demonization and victimhood. If you look carefully, the stated public policy of the various state governments has not been anti-madrasa education. In fact, there are various government programs seeking modernization and support for these institutions. There is a case to be made that, like any other institution, madrasas should be fully regulated and reformed. While the demonization is questionable, one cannot deny the stark reality that there is a certain section within the community that has been refusing these changes and calling these services as an interference by the state government in these institutions, which are autonomous. Often the response to a push for reform or even criticism is denial and victimhood. Caught between these fault lines is the story of millions of Indian Muslims who still seek support of madrasa for religious or other sorts of education. Not to forget the national security concerns raised by the state governments and also the centre. Our top focus this hour.
मदरसों को बदनाम भाजपा इसलिए करती है क्योंकि भाजपा जानती है कि आजादी की लड़ाई में कोई आरएसएस वाला नहीं था।
योगी जी वहां कानून का राज स्थापित कर रहे हैं, इसीलिए वो मदरसों का सर्वे कराने का काम।
To what extent can the regulation versus the autonomy argument really be balanced under the Indian Constitution? What is it that the law says? Let's take you through some key pointers. Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, Article 29, is the right to preserve distinct culture, language and script. The Indian Constitution gives that right to minorities of this country, including Muslims. Right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. It's a right which has been affirmed by the Supreme Court in multiple judgments. But yes, there are riders to it. What is the extent of government control? The government can check the academic status to maintain the standards which are required. The government may make directive policies for the welfare of the staff. The government can make interferences to the extent that it does not dilute the character of a minority institution, and the government is responsible for effective management and proper functioning. Those are the broad arguments of the minority rights in this country vis-a-vis the Indian Constitution. What is the public debate which is panning out right now? The two sides of the argument. First of all, many promote radicalization and anti-national activities. The crackdown debate that we're talking about, when the state like Assam and Uttar Pradesh is saying we need to be careful. Deobandis, Barevilis, Ahle Hadis, there are various philosophies which are radicalized, which are twisted. Once again, there is also a need for improved legalized funding that needs to come into madrasas. It's already happening in some states across the country. And interference in communities' religious matter. As I earlier said, the autonomy argument is a dominant argument. Many at par with the government schools, a lot of them are directly monitored by the government. And the argument on the other side is that there is outdated syllabus, skilling which is unsuited to the modern needs, and more importantly, when you're giving religious education, you don't know what kind of religious education is being given. There's lack of transparency in functioning. As I said, we don't know the syllabuses completely, especially when it comes to religious education, and it can't be treated like non-religious bodies. They're saying this is a distinct character which we want to maintain. Now, madrasas are under the lens, this is a clean-up by the state or a witch hunt. That's the key question that we ask, that how is it that we should understand the state action, and to what extent Should these institutions run by the minority boards be open for the change and the regulation that the government is asking them to do? Before I take that question to our guests, joining us on the broadcast is my colleague Pranshu Mishra, our UP Bureau Chief. My colleague Preeti is also joining us on the broadcast, getting us more updates from the state of Assam. Pranshu, first to you. In the state of Uttar Pradesh, there are various schemes that the government of Uttar Pradesh had actually implemented. In fact, if you go to the website of the UP government, there is a full modernization program that they're talking about. The present surveys which are being conducted, what is the purpose of it? And is there also a larger national security concern that has been raised?
Yes, Anusha, there is already a Madrasa Education Board which has been functioning in UP for past many decades. What Yogi government is trying to do and what it claims, the government claims is that Madrasa education has been lacking behind, has been dragging behind. As far as the modern syllabus is concerned, modern education is concerned, we want to bring that the Madrasa education on par as far as the modern standards, the present day requirements are concerned. Madrasa Education Board has 16,500 madrasas registered to it, out of which only 500 are being given grants in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of salaries for the teachers. Now, beyond that, there are thousands of other madrasas. As you rightly said, there are several sects within Islam, both within Shia and the Sunni sects. Several, school of thoughts are there in Islam. Each of them have many more madrasas associated to them. These madrasas are often run by the zakat money, and that is mandatory for every Muslim to donate. Now the objection here is, or the concern alarm here is on two basic premises of that questionnaire. One, disclose your source of funding. So if you are not funded by the madrasa board or by the government, which number is only 500 out of thousands of madrasas, then the madrasas administration needs to disclose the name of those individuals or those bodies which are funding them, and subsequently that can mean that at any given stage, in any point in future, the government will have all the needed information about such. The other point that, on which the objection is, disclose your affiliation. So if you are not recognized by Madrasa board, which is that religious trust or the body or organization to which you are associated, and again, that can bring such organizations under the scrutiny. That's the reason why Muslim Personal Law Board, Jamiat Ulama Hind, leaders like Asawuddin Owaisi are not ready to buy the state government's argument that this exercise is primarily, basically for infrastructure development, quality enhancement. They feel that there is a larger hidden agenda behind this drive, and the 2 points which we have just discussed, they say that these are the proof that government's larger intent is something different, and that the talk of modernization is just to do an eye wash.
Pranshu, before I go to Preeti, very briefly from you, even if the concern of the government is the funding of the madrasas and the affiliations, they want to know which school of thought are you really affiliated with and what are you teaching in madrasas. Is there something wrong about it? I mean, these are legitimate questions that any government can ask.
Well, there remains a larger debate. Muslim side's argument is that we are not imparting any, illegal education. Madrasas, many of them are for departing theological education, the education about Islam, and therefore, under the Constitution's Article 1329 decides that they have privilege. So their argument is that, it's not just a question about government's intent, it's also the argument that whether the government's move is constitutional or against the provisions of the Constitution.
All right, Pranshu, thank you so much for getting us that perspective. Preeti, coming to you, the state of Assam in the last 2 to 3 years has taken several drastic measures when it comes to the regulation of madrasas. In fact, they went ahead and passed a law which was upheld by the Guwahati High Court as well. Recently, there have been a spate of instances where illegal madrasas have been put down by the government. Tell us about what is happening in the state right now, what the drive of the government really is about, and what kind of reactions is it evoking from the opposition?
See, the point is that it is exactly not an action against the madrasas as stated by the Chief Minister of Assam and also the respective Superintendent of Police in all the districts where the madrasas have been demolished. Time and again in Assam it has been said that it is against jihad, it is against terrorist activities which have been found in certain madrasas, and which is why the madrasas have been demolished. And that has now raised concerns among all the fraternities as well. However, we have seen that the Muslim regional parties and also the people of certain Islamic organizations have come out opposing the fact that now a lot of madrasas have been demolished in last 1 month. 4 madrasas were demolished in last 1 month, but the point is that only those madrasas where some terrorist activities were found were actually demolished. This has been said repetitively by the Chief Minister of Assam that Assam is not actually against the madrasas, but the point is that if they are teaching something, if somebody is trying to carry out certain anti-national terrorist activities which can harm the larger people in the larger fraternities in India, that definitely is a national security concern for which the state has acted. And we have seen that in the recent cases where the documents have been found from all the madrasas, they directly indicate that there were certain terrorist activities going on. Basically, there were certain teachings being given to the students about jihad. So the point is that if such students are being taught about such kind of things, because we, as you have talked about the transparency, because it is not at all transparent about what is being taught in the madrasas, that is actually raising questions, because there are certain booklets have been found where they have talked about Allahir Pather Shahid or certain things which will make someone incline towards terrorist activities, and actually that is creating concern from all the fraternities in Assam. And basically Chief Minister of the state has also stated that the state is not against madrasas, but activities that is now being seen in certain madrasas.
Thank you, Preeti, for getting us all those details. My colleague Pranshu and Preeti tracking those details from the 2 key states where this debate clearly has been one of the key focus areas. Now to our panel.